It's fun to look at yourself as other people.
It's that easy? I have got to get one of these!
Picture this. You are a parent in 1998 who goes and buys a child-friendly game for your kid's Game Boy. They absolutely love it and play it non-stop until this monstrosity appears on their screen. Well, that's exactly what happened in 1998 with the release of the Game Boy camera, also known as the pocket camera in Japan. This nifty little accessory gave you the ability to take grainy pictures with your Game Boy wherever you go. Just insert the handy-dandy camera into the gaming slot, and voila, your Game Boy can now take pictures, albeit really crappy ones. And if you bought the Game Boy printer, you could print out stickers too. Both the Game Boy camera and the Game Boy printer were more marketed as toys for children than actual photography stuff, as the camera not only allowed you to take photos, but also edit them and incorporate them into the camera's many mini-games. The first thing we see upon booting the game is Mario dancing like a drunk uncle. The game's menu has 3 different categories, that being shoot, play, and view. View is pretty self-explanatory, allowing you to view your photos, albums, and slideshows, as well as also having an animation option, which we'll talk more about in a minute. Then there's play, which is 4 different mini-games that you can incorporate photos of your face into. The first one is Space Fever 2, which is basically just a Galaga clone. The other 2 are Run 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 and a Simple Beatmaker, where you can make sick tunes. The last minigame is Ball, which is really just a little juggling game. And when you get tired of playing with balls, you can click on Shoot, which leads us to another menu, which is set up like an RPG. From there, you can click on Shoot again to take pictures, which has different settings that you can adjust, like brightness and contrast. You could also customize the frame of the photos as well, and make a lot of different small tweaks to them. By clicking on Magic, you also could use all kinds of different filters and effects on your photos too. Honestly, the Game Boy camera is a pretty respectable accessory, as it had a lot of stuff that you could actually do on it and fidget around with. With all that being said though, this game had a rather disturbing Easter egg. One that would literally scare the crap out of children who played the game. If you entered the Shoot menu and then clicked the Run button, it would show a photo of the continent of Africa, along with the saying you are now crossing the equator. However, if you continue to click the Run button over and over, one of 3 creepy faces would randomly appear on the screen, along with a saying, "Who are you running from?" Keep in mind, this game was marketed to children, and it wasn't like this was an accident either, as all 3 photos have their own unique theme song when they appear. And clicking the Run button over and over was not the only way these faces would appear, as they would also appear if your album was full, and would just randomly jump scare you when clicking on animations and other parts of the game. While it's pretty obvious that these photos were inserted as nothing more than a joke by the developers, that hasn't stopped idiots on the internet from developing all kinds of crazy and ludicrous conspiracy theories about them. There is one more interesting detail about these faces though. In the Japanese version of this game, 2 of the faces are actually different. In fact, the Japanese version of this game in general has a lot of weird changes to it, though it does make me wonder why they changed 2 of the faces to begin with. Either way, this is a pretty spooky Easter egg for a kid's game. Ironically enough, Nintendo would not make another handheld camera until the Nintendo DSi. But in the early 2000s, they did actually have a plan to make a successor for it on the Game Boy Advance. And they even displayed a prototype of it during the Game Boy Advance's launch. It would be called the Game Eye, and would be a much more advanced version of what the Game Boy Pocket was. Though for unknown reasons, the Game Eye was cancelled and never actually got released. Despite how primitive it is, the Game Boy camera is still something that many people look fondly upon and find charming. And if this video intrigues you, why not look them up for yourself?